Welcome to the Nonprofit Exchange Podcast. Stories by leaders for leaders to help you raise the bar on your own excellence, to release the potential inside of you. Now, here's today's podcast. This is Hugh Ballou back for another episode of the Nonprofit Exchange. I'm the founder and president of Center Vision Leadership Foundation, where our work is transforming leaders, transforming organizations, transforming lives. And there's somebody else here that does similar stuff, but in a very different way, but a very significant way. And we're on opposite coasts from each other, got connected with a mutual friend and have had some off and on conversations. And I'm proud to have Joel Clelland here today as my guest on the Nonprofit Exchange. Joel, tell people a little bit about who you are and your background.
Absolutely. Thanks, Hugh, for having me on as well. We finally got around to doing this. I know we've wanted to do this for a while now. It's great to be here, especially going into the holidays. A little background on me as a nonprofit leader, and then just as somebody who cares about others. I think that's probably a great place to start. It's one thing to say you care about others, and it's another thing to actually take action. And I've been very action oriented for over 30 years in community service in different capacities. And my early years, my formative years, if you will, were growing up in church circles with my family and doing basic service within the community, whether it was working with the homeless, getting them food, clothing, or blankets, things of that nature, or going on trips with my youth group to Mexico. Did that probably 24 times, both in high school and also in college. And just going and visiting with people, I don't think that people can truly appreciate the different degrees to which people live and the circumstances people live in if you don't visit with them and break bread with them. And I would say that breaking bread is probably part of my own personal credo. To truly understand where people are at, you have to meet them where they're at. And that's kind of been my focus since I can remember, probably middle school. And I just turned 50, so you do the math.
I'm 26 years ahead of you. My goodness.
Yeah, you are, but you don't look it.
I did, thank you. I did several trips to Mexico with mission groups. I didn't see you there. It's a big place.
Yeah, I think we were in different parts of the country.
It was in several parts. So that's a lot, 30 years. So that's significant. Your philosophy of giving is what I would term, but under the umbrella of philanthropy. We think philanthropists are people with a big pocketbook and a big checkbook, but really philanthropy is love of humankind, literally, but it's time, talent, and money. And it sounds like you put that. So is that basically the umbrella for your philosophy of how you show up in the world?
Definitely. I would say that's how I define it. And a dear friend of mine who's actually a co-founder of Project Boon, Chris Sahonic, who you've met, yeah. He and I have conversations about this regularly, that some people serve others very naturally, and then some are more begrudgingly, and then others don't serve because they've just never been taught that this is part of what we do as humans. We care for one another.
So you have a business background. You have 25 or so years in nonprofit leadership. So why is it important to think with a business hat on as a nonprofit leader?
One of the things that I think we do really well at Project Boon is we connect with the business community and strategic partners. And I want to talk about another nonprofit for a second, if that's okay with you. I'm sure you're familiar with Charity Water, Scott Harrison's organization.
I'm not.
No, but they do amazing work. I heard Scott speak for the first time in New Orleans back in 2015. And one of the things that he explained, because he's a business person who comes to service from the business side, what they did is because a lot of nonprofits have a lot of overhead, and not all of those donated dollars get right to the ground where they're needed. What he did was he set up two different entities. There's a for-profit side and a not-for-profit side, and you can give directly to the for-profit side, which is keeping the lights on and HR and all of that. But I think what happens a lot of times is there are people who have a big heart, but they don't approach nonprofit work as a business. And I think that's where a lot of nonprofit organizations get in trouble. And there's millions of nonprofit organizations out there. I don't think a lot of people realize the scale and the scope of how many nonprofit organizations are out there, and more are popping up all the time. And why do some do better than others? I'd say that's probably a really good question to ask. Like, how do they increase revenue? How do they do that? How do they keep it consistent?
That's it. I'd like to hear your answer to both of those.
Yeah. So one of the questions that comes up a lot is in the space, I would say, is very similar to anybody who's in the church world, and I know you are. I grew up in the church world, where a lot of times it feels like leadership is asking for money and asking the congregation for money. And one of the things I think we can do very easily in a lot of cases, especially in the digital age, is create passive income for nonprofits. And one of the things that is really popular in traditional business are subscriptions. And why not have a subscription for giving? You're paying $5 a month or $20 a month for your TV service or something of that nature. You can actually put those things on autopilot with your local nonprofit. And a lot of times the donor community, like I said at the beginning, if they don't know what to do, they just don't. They don't seek it out. And if nonprofits could be better with the marketing and the educational piece, showing people, hey, it's really easy to give and you can do it from your position with the nonprofit you like. And one thing I think we do really well at Project Boon is the statistics, because that's another piece that I think creates some ambivalence and some, we'll call them begrudging, or the begrudgingly people who they don't want to give because they're like, I don't know if I can trust this organization. I kind of like what they're talking about, but I'm not sure every dollar I send them is going where it's needed most. And I think when organizations can get that data out there in the public's hands, they can make better decisions as givers. So you have the givers, you have volunteers, which I think a lot of organizations do fairly well, but we could all do better at that. And then you have sponsors or title sponsors and strategic partners, which is something that we really focus on at Project Boon. Actually, our entire board is made up predominantly of business owners. We do have a gal, she's a CEO of another nonprofit who also sits on our board. But those are the types of people we attract because we want to bring that acumen to the board. And one of the things I think that's fascinating for a lot of people about Project Boon is that we're actually a part-time nonprofit and have been for 11 years, and we don't have any full-time employees. And we always have the funds that we need to do the work that we do. And so that's a kind of an interesting question, like how do organizations continue to replicate that?
Well, let's talk about Project
Have
Boon.
strong reserves.
You brought it up. Let's talk about Project Boon. Now, it's projectboon.org. And if people go to that website, what do they find?
So on the landing page, you'll see basically a banner with a list of companies that support what we're doing. Project Boon itself is predominantly based in Southern California. And I know that sometimes when people give, they want to give locally, which I completely appreciate. But one of the things that we've focused on since the beginning of Project Boon is providing an opportunity for people to volunteer. Because a lot of times people, they don't know where to give and they don't know where to help. And so one of the things that Project Boon does is we try to keep things very simple for people. You go to projectboon.org, you're going to get an education. If you click on the donor button, you're going to see statistics of what we're doing. We're actually closing in on 200,000 meals pushed out into the community since the beginning of Project Boon. And this is as a part-time nonprofit that does about 4 or 5 events a year. And obviously you'll get kind of an understanding of what's happening there. Shameless plug, if you haven't completed all your holiday shopping, there's actually some swag in the Project Boon store. And basically it just gives people an opportunity to see, okay, what are these people about? And one of the things that I would like to kind of touch on, Hugh, just for a moment, is a campaign we started last year called Give Without Reservation.
Ooh.
And yeah, Give Without Reservation is something that kind of was spawned during the pandemic from somebody who wasn't even a member of our team. He's a gentleman who didn't sit on our board. He just heard about us during the pandemic, and we started kind of doing some brainstorming with this gentleman. And out of those brainstorms came this concept, Give Without Reservation, or hashtag Give Without Reservation. And kind of getting back to what I was saying earlier, a lot of times people aren't sure where to give because there's concern, because there have been some unfortunate things happen in the nonprofit space where there's either been, embezzlement or just poor money management, whatever it happens to be. And a lot of times people aren't sure, well, how do I know if I give to this organization, if my money's going to get to the people that need it most? And so that's something that we really focus on at Project Boon. And this campaign, Give Without Reservation, is in tandem with that initial concern that some people have. Another concern is just giving money to people on the street. And this is another opportunity for people to not have to do that because either there's a concern for safety, or again, I don't know where this wonderful human being, my brother and sister in the human race, is going to take this money. And so what Project Boon does is it allows people to give without reservation because people know where the money's going. They know that the people who are getting help, they can see it. And if they want to participate, they can, because we have those volunteer opportunities.
So that's your way of showing the accountability, is transparency of how the money is used. So I notice you've got some significant, you have companies listed. I guess they would be sponsors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some are sponsors to varying degrees, and some of these companies, you saw the Target logo on there, I'm sure. A lot of local and regional stores actually encourage their workers to participate in community service, and so we've actually had teams from Target come and volunteer at our events. So in addition to their donations.
So let's clarify. Technically, a sponsorship is marketing dollars that you promote a company's brand, like a Target. All these companies also have a philanthropy budget where they donate. So that's and that comes from their giving budget, which is limited. So there's 2 different pockets you could take from both pockets, actually.
Right. And actually, it's interesting you bring that up, Hugh, because a local grocery store, it's a regional grocery store, they got about I think they're around 188 stores or something like that. But they're just out here, and they have a foundation that's separate from the grocery store. So they have, we'll call them XYZ grocery store because they're not listed yet, charities. And so a lot of these companies they basically, like you said, they have, different entities, or like you said, different pockets that can be accessed by organizations doing good work. And the thing is, most of these organizations have to give the money away anyway. They have to do the work. That's the whole reason that those entities are in place.
Why not you? So
why not us?
Yes, an example, making a good case for that, because certainly they're not looking for places to give money because there's plenty of people lined up. So a competitor would be Walmart. Walmart, these individual stores give to projects, but also have a foundation. Walmart has foundation, they give as well. So there's 2 different entities, and I'm sure they coordinate that. But American Express, you just name a company, they've got a foundation, and it's competitive. You have to really back together. So if you have,
I agree, especially accessing those grants from the banks and some of these other larger companies, it's very competitive.
So a lot of it's relationships. So talk about your board. That's envious. How many people on your board?
We have, I want to say we're at 9 right now. We have basically our executive director and treasurer, our 2 co-founders, Chris and Anna Karina Sahanik. And we have an amazing development coordinator. Her name is Elise Martinez, and she's been with us almost 2 years. She's absolutely wonderful. The board chair who came in, his name is William Butler, and he actually has a background in payment services and finance for large scale equipment. And I'm not going to name everybody, but I want to talk about William just for a second. I couldn't be happier having him serve as our board chair, because he really goes after it. And every single member of our board, save that one lady who's the CEO of another nonprofit, are business owners that have business relationships.
There you go.
Yeah,
That's how you get to these people, having relationships, right?
correct. Yeah, they bring in the turkeys and the the toys and the resources needed to have successful events and really make an impact in the community.
That's so important. You've engaged and empowered your board to do different things. And let me repeat what I heard. This is totally volunteer. You have no paid staff, right?
Correct. Because even Elise, she actually works for one of the, we'll say that Chris and Karina have a couple of companies. they have several, but she's a full-time employee of one of the co-founders' companies, and she does this as well. But she facilitates a lot of the correspondence with the organization, and also drums up support, also helps to coordinate volunteers, and everybody kind of pitches in, and it's worked up to this point. Is there a point in the future where we believe Project Boon is going to have warehouses of food and a full-time staff and things of that nature? That's in the vision. But to make the kind of impact we've made just in the last decade I think it's very impressive. Just looking in, a lot of times people look at what Project Boon is doing and they think our organization is a lot larger than we actually are because of the impact.
Well, you are large because you have, that defines large to me. You have impact, and that's the reason you have supporters.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason people want to see a difference. It's return on impact, ROI, or ROL, return on life. And you get there with ROR, return on relationship. So you're doing a lot of things really well. You've been a board chair before.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And so any insights about how to talk to business leaders about, I was recently president of the board of the Lynchburg Symphony Orchestra, and our treasurer rotated off the board, one of our officers, and I asked 28 people and got turned down. So I can't say, you mentioned that we need a treasurer.
That never happens to you. Come on.
You mentioned you need a treasurer. They start thinking
stuck with the bag.
They just all the excuses. When in fact, all I had to do was to take the reports from the bookkeeper and share them with the board, because we had systems in place and a really professional bookkeeper, and so interpreting what the numbers are was not heavy lifting. But still, you get these. I'm on too many boards, or my wife's going to take a board to me if I join one more board. So what's the secret of getting people on board with your board from the business community?
I would say initially offering volunteer opportunities. We have a local dental practice, a local tax office. There's a couple of religious organizations, and we're nonpartisan, we're non-religious. We just want to help people. I think offering people the opportunity to volunteer, because a lot of times people don't know where to go. I can go to the United Way, or I can help out the Red Cross, or over here I can do this thing with this local religious group, if you will, or help out a soup kitchen. But one of the things that we do that really engages the business community is showing them, hey, you can get your employees, your teams out to be a part of our team for an event. It makes an impact on them. It makes them better workers because they know, hey, we work for an amazing company that participates in community service, and they give us the opportunity to do so as well. One of the things I think is great is, like you said, not every business wants to write those checks, but a lot of times they either need to or they want to, and having those connections, I think, is invaluable. And just I think as a board chair, past board chair of Project Boon, I've been a board chair of another organization as well. Being a good listener is really helpful. Finding out, what do these businesses want, what gets them excited, what animates them about the community. I was working with a local gym earlier this week and last week, and the gym owner, he kind of said, offhanded, yeah, if I can get a couple of memberships, from foot traffic, because they're hosting one of our Project Boon donation bins. And I know he was joking, but there was some truth in that, where there's got to be a fair exchange in the community, even when businesses are connecting with a not-for-profit. It's like, what are they getting? Do they just get, like you said, the marketing piece, where it's like, okay, this casino supports Project Boon, or this restaurant supports Project Boon, or is there something else that's more altruistic in the background? And I like to think that there is with some businesses, but I'm also wise enough to know, hey, what is it that makes you guys tick? Do you guys want to participate in volunteerism? Do you want to offer that to your teams? Great, we have that for you. Do you want to make an impact for good in the community with regard to food insecurity and toys for families in need going into the holidays? Great, we have that opportunity for you as well. And the thing is, we also know there's a lot of other nonprofit organizations that are doing similar work. And we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We just want to do what we do and do it well, and allow businesses to participate. Because the more businesses that participate with us as strategic partners, the more work we can get done. That I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those are really good thoughts. Our audience are nonprofit leaders and clergy. And we all suffer with the same, we get in the rut, and how do I get out of this rut? What's some new ideas? So I'd like to point out that on your main website page, you have the why. Now, we often talk about what we do, but it's why Project Boon. So you have a clear understanding of why it's important. I think people need to know that before they're going to listen to your pitch. And I would also say your pitch is based on relationship, but the pitch for money and the pitch for volunteerism is pretty much the same, because it's a value. They're going to donate their time, or they're going to donate their money. So I think there's a big similarity. And you also have give without reservation. That's really such a great philosophy. Do you have a reservation? And you hear stories where nonprofits have not been careful by having clear process for signing checks or approving expenditures, and some money disappears. So I don't want that to happen to my money if I donate.
No,
so
of course.
That's really important. So we're coming up to the end of our short interview, but you've a lot of really helpful stuff in here. Anything that we didn't cover yet that you'd like to share?
Well, you were touching right there at the end about the why. And I want to hit on that just very briefly. I talked about Chris, who you've met, one of the co-founders, but I don't think you've ever met Anna Karina Sohanik, his wife, have you? No. She's a delightful lady, and I both Chris and I, we agree that she's much better mouthpiece for Project Boon than either of us. But we talked about Mexico earlier and trips to Mexico. Both you and I have visited Mexico on occasions. Anna Karina is actually from Tuxpan, which is in Jalisco. So she's from Mexico, and when she came to the U.S. and became a very successful entrepreneur in her own right, she wanted to start making an impact. And her and Chris together, that was their whole reason. That was their why for starting Project Boon. We want to give back. We're totally blessed, and we know that there are people who need help. And so that was the starting point. Everything that is built off of that, both now up to now and what's going to happen in the future, kind of still continues to stem from that. That mission is never going to change. We're looking for people who we used to refer to as underserved, And underserved is a definition for us that is kind of a few steps above homeless. There are a lot of organizations, as you know, Hugh, that focus on the homeless. Project Boon, will we feed the homeless? Will we clothe the homeless? Absolutely. But our focus is really a couple steps above that. You know, the family going into the holidays that maybe the breadwinner loses his job or her job. We want to be there to kind of help a little bit, maybe get them a couple weeks worth of groceries, maybe provide those toys at Christmas, that kind of thing. And that's what Project Boon has been up to this point. It's an organization that provides volunteering opportunities to give, and then kind of helps to fill in some of the gaps. And we saw during the pandemic that was something that that we were able to do, was help fill in some of those gaps. But that's our why, and I believe that people, if they just visit projectboon.org, visit our website, learn a little bit about what we're doing, that they'll want to participate from whatever position they're at, either as a donor, volunteer, or sponsor. And I'll just end with this real briefly. If you're in Southern California on November 23rd, we welcome you to come break bread with us. All are welcome. The food that we're cooking up and distributing is not just for people in need. There will be hot meals for everybody in attendance. And that's on the 23rd of November in the city of Fontana, California. And you can learn all about it on the website. If you want to volunteer there, you can. You can learn about it on the website. And then on December 17th in the city of Rialto, California, there's also opportunities for volunteering. And I'll end there.
No matter where you are, no matter when you're listening to this podcast,
right.
People might be listening to this a year from when we recorded it.
That's true.
We're recording it in November of 2022, but you can always go to Project Boon, BOON.org, and you can find out what's current. And by the way, if you don't live in Southern California, you might know somebody, and you could say, oh, why don't you go down here, and it would be worth your while to find out how you can contribute to Project Boon. So Joel, I feel your passion, and thank you for what you're doing for the good of humankind and sharing your message with us today on the Nonprofit Exchange.
Thank you, Hugh. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for watching the Nonprofit Exchange.